Are we all Gretchens waiting for the downfall of Regina?
Taylor Swift didn't just write love songs. Psychology suggests she may have taught millions of people how love is supposed to feel. If you've ever cried to her lyrics, healed with them, or played the same song on repeat after a breakup, here's an honest question. Were you processing emotion or learning a script? Subscribe for more stories like this. Now let's get back to it. Music doesn't just entertain us, it trains us. Long before most people experience real relationships, they absorb ideas about love from songs. What love should look like, how conflict should feel, what's normal and what isn't. Psychologists call these mental blueprints relationship schemas, and once they form, they quietly guide how we attach, argue, and recover. That's why Taylor Swift is such a fascinating case. She isn't just popular, she feels personal. Her songwriting is confessional. Her online presence is intimate. Many fans don't experience her as a distant celebrity, but as a trusted voice. In psychology, that's called a parasocial relationship, when someone you've never met still feels emotionally close. And when that happens, their stories land differently. Their advice carries more weight. So, a group of psychologists decided to look beyond opinions and analyze the data. They examined every romantic song Taylor Swift released through the end of 2023, not just the hits, everything. Over 180 songs carefully coded line by line. They weren't asking whether the music was good or bad, they were asking something more subtle. What kind of relationship behavior do these songs model? They focused on attachment styles, patterns that describe how people connect emotionally. Secure attachment is calm and trusting. Anxious attachment fears abandonment and craves reassurance. Avoidant attachment keeps emotional distance. These styles don't just show up in therapy sessions, they show up in lyrics. Across her entire catalog, one pattern appeared more than any other: anxious attachment. Fear of losing someone, hyper-focus on the relationship, emotional intensity that swings between closeness and panic. More than half of the songs reflected it in some form. But that wasn't the most important discovery. The real shift happened when researchers separated the songs by relationship phase. Songs about the beginning of love, songs set during an active relationship, and songs about breakups. That distinction changed everything. Songs that took place during a relationship told a surprisingly healthy story. They were more likely to show secure attachment, trust, mutual support, emotional safety. These songs didn't pretend love was perfect, they acknowledged conflict, routine, even boredom, but they framed love as something stable, something built through consistency, not drama. They quietly modeled a realistic version of romance, one where effort mattered more than intensity. Then came the breakup songs, and the psychology flipped almost completely. Breakup tracks were far more likely to show anxiety, anger, and hostility. Betrayal became central, revenge became tempting, emotional regulation disappeared. Instead of healing, many of these songs stayed inside the pain, circling it again and again. They validated the feeling of being wronged, but rarely showed healthy ways to recover. To be clear, this doesn't mean those emotions are wrong. In real life, heartbreak often does trigger anxiety and anger. The researchers actually pointed out that this makes the music feel authentic. The concern wasn't that the songs expressed pain, it was that they rarely modeled what comes after the pain. No resilience, no growth, just emotional looping. And that matters, especially for younger listeners. When the same emotional response is replayed again and again, it can start to feel like the correct response, not just a feeling, but a rule. The study also looked at how these patterns changed over time. Early albums contained very little sexual content. Later eras became more explicit. Some albums leaned more towards emotional avoidance, others towards anxiety. One album stood out from the rest. Lover contained more examples of secure attachment than any other era. Less chaos, more steadiness. Less obsession, more partnership. Which raises an interesting question. If healthier relationship models exist in her music, why don't they dominate? To explore that, the researchers compared lyrical themes with popularity using streaming numbers as a rough measure. At first, lyrics didn't seem to matter much. What mattered most was marketing, timing, and whether a song was performed on tour. Visibility drove streams more than psychology. But when those factors were removed, one pattern emerged. Songs with clear sexual content tended to perform better than songs without. Not songs with healthier communication, not songs with secure attachment. Intensity won again. This doesn't mean listeners are doing something wrong. It means humans are wired to respond to emotional charge. High emotion grabs attention. Calm stability doesn't, at least not immediately. The researchers were careful to point out limitations. Songs are narratives, not checklists. A lyric about secrecy might be part of a story that ultimately resolves. Numbers can't capture nuance, and older albums existed before streaming dominated music consumption. Still, the overall picture was hard to ignore. Taylor Swift's music doesn't send one message about love, it sends many. Some model security, empathy, and realism. Others reinforce anxiety, hostility, and emotional spirals. The key difference is context. The takeaway wasn't to stop listening, it was to listen differently. Breakup songs can be emotional release, not instruction manuals. Relationship songs can model support, not fantasy. Awareness changes how influence works. Taylor Swift's music is powerful because it mirrors real emotion. At its best, it reflects healthy connection. At its worst, it freezes heartbreak in place. Knowing which is which gives listeners something valuable: choice. Because the songs you repeat don't just stay in your headphones, they quietly shape the stories you tell yourself about love.